Good morning. Today we'll discuss Thomas Gray's poem Elegy written in a country churchyard. We'll go through an introduction and summary of the various stanzas and the issues or topics covered through this poem. Thomas Gray's Elegy written in a country churchyard is the most important and widely read poem of elegiac poetry in 18th century English literature. It is Gray's response to seeing a village churchyard near his mother's house in the small village of Stoke Poges in England. The pastoral scene inspired him meditation on mortality and remembrance among the common people of England's rural agricultural society. Gray ends his exploration on a personal note. Using the persona of an observer, an old villager, Gray describes himself from a distance and discloses how he hopes to be remembered by creating his own epitaph. Gray began to compose elegy in 1742 and published in 1751. Gray's elegy explores the nature of mortality and remembrance and also suggests the poet's own view of how he wishes to be remembered. Gray wrote two versions, the first in 1742 after the death of his friend Richard West, and the second around 1748 after the death of an aunt. The published poem of 1751 contains major revisions, notably a shift in focus at the end of the poem to Gray's own reflections on how posterity will remember him as a poet. Elegies are generally poems that center on the death of a specific person, such as Milton's Lycidas, but Gray uses the elegiac form to explore death as a universal experience that mankind must understand and accept. Elegies can take any poetic form, but Gray uses the elegiac stanza, which came into style during his time and which he perfected. The elegiac stanza form consists of 4-line stanzas or quatrains written in iambic pentameter. Elegy written in a country churchyard can loosely be divided into 5 groups of stanzas, that is stanzas 1 to 5, which explores the landscape, the country graveyard and its sounds, terrain, flora and fauna, and most importantly, the physical and metaphorical stage on which Gray's meditation will play out. Stanzas 6 and 7 briefly but emotionally describe the familial and rustic activities that the rude forefathers can no longer enjoy. In stanzas 8 to 18, the most sustained discussion of death as the great leveler or equalizer of social class, Gray explores the contrast between the wealthy classes and the common laborers, all of whom are made equal in death. Then stanzas 19 to 23 focus on the village's deceased rustic people and their inherent value as objects of memory. The last stanzas, that is 24 to 32, includes the speaker's own epitaph and describes the speaker's meditation on how his poetic life will be remembered. The first topic is the universality of death, which he discusses and which seems to be the central focus of Gray's elegy. He writes that the inevitability of death of men and women from different social classes is to be remembered. Strictly speaking, the traditional elegy form memorializes an individual's death, but Gray expands the form to encompass death as a phenomena that all of humankind inevitably experiences. In elegy, Gray meditates on death as it relates to the rustic commoners who populate the village and its country. The poem attends to those living in a small England village, including the ploughman who plods his weary way home at night and ends his life in a narrow cell forever laid. Such scenes are far from the busy world of wealth and power. Gray places the rustic forefathers who lie in the graveyard in opposition to the mocking personification of ambition and the disdainful smile of grandeur, who presumably look upon the rustics buried in the graveyard with contempt. Then is the social class and value. A significant aspect of Gray's elegy is his belief that the wealthy and powerful who perceive the common man as less worthy are wrongly conflating wealth and power with value. His meditation on how the wealthy and poor are remembered allows him to explore social values. The poem ultimately suggests that an individual's value ought not to be tied to social class. Gray unleashes a forceful attack on the assumption that the rustic poor are inherently less valuable to society than the rich and powerful people. Gray illustrates his views with the monuments by which the dead are remembered. The poem asks whether the wealthy and powerful can be brought back to life if by any more effectively than the poor, whose graves are marked by no trophies. Gray's speaker, himself not part of the upper stratum of English society, notes that among the rustic dead, maybe there is someone whose heart was once pregnant with celestial fire, indicating a would-be poet. But such commoners live lives in which brilliant achievements are unobtainable because chill penury repressed their noble rage. That is, poverty ruins their chances of development. Gray alludes to notable figures John Hampden, Milton, and Cromwell, who represent lives that the commoners in the graves could never emulate because of the difficulty of their lives. Gray makes it clear that because of poverty, many potential Miltons and Hampdens go undeveloped and therefore unvalued. Last is the rural life and remembrance. In one of the most quoted passages of the poem, Gray introduces his argument that despite the anonymity of the commoners buried in the churchyard, they must be memorialized and thereby remembered. Far from the madding crowd's ignoble strife, their sober wishes never learn to. These lines end this topic, and we will discuss the poem in detail in our next topic. Thank you.